Well, hey, friends, welcome to the show. You are listening to the Simplified Church podcast, the only podcast that exists for everyday pastors and leaders just like you, folks that are in the trenches of ministry that are just trying to get the overwhelm out of the everyday details that comes with leading a church, leading a ministry, whatever your role is in the church. We know that, man, sometimes it can just be so overwhelming, so exhausting. And this podcast is here to help you try to get all that stuff out of the way so you can just focus on growing and leading a healthy ministry. And I am pumped to have you with us today as we're getting into some really exciting topics and conversations as of late. And today is going to be no different. But before we jump into our conversation today, I want to say hello to my guy, Greg, my co-host extraordinaire, and see how you doing, man? How's your week been?
Man, I'm doing well. It's been an incredible week, both at church and just in life in general. So turned 37 on Monday.
Oh, the big 37.
Yeah, indeed.
Is it big? Is it big? Can you say that?
Meh.
People, like it's people like the big 3-5, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Say that.
30 was a hard number.
30's a big one.
Yeah. I don't know that 35 was a hard number. And I'm not really sure that I feel any different than I did at 35, but whatever, it is what it is.
But you're 37 now.
But 37, and I think I ate 37,000 calories on my birthday.
Of course. Yeah. I'm a big fan. For every year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or for every year, it's at least 1,000 calories.
That's right. Okay, so for our Metro East or St. Louis region folk, it's the tradition at the Braswell House that we do Fitz's.
Oh yeah, like the root beer and the burger place, and okay.
For birthday. At least for my birthday, for my son who'll be 4 in a couple of days, we usually, but either for both of our birthdays or for one of our birthdays, we'll go there. And the milkshakes and the root beer floats there are out of this world crazy.
They are pretty good. Yeah. That's awesome, man. So you had a good birthday?
Yeah, I did. I was still, man, I'm waiting for the vest. A couple of episodes ago, guys.
Yes,
Mike said I was going to get a vest for my birthday.
Okay, I'm on the hunt.
And no vest.
Okay. Like, what are you?
Like we got a
what are you? Large?
Yeah, child medium. Yeah,
child medium. Okay.
All right. But like, it can't be the Walmart schmuck.
No.
Like, or the greeting card schmuck. Like, okay, I hadn't seen one in years. I was at the store the other day, and I saw the lady who was refilling the greeting cards, and she had the smock, and it kind of made my heart happy.
Well, yeah. People at Hallmark, first off, the fact that there are Hallmark stores to begin with is truly impressive. You know what I mean? Like they're closing my favorite restaurants around me because
Hallmark can stay open.
But Hallmark can. Who's buying Hallmark products in such demand that they think, we still need a brick and mortar? That's
the same people who are watching their movies on their movie channel, even though it's the same story and even the same actors and actresses.
Yeah, they've got quite a niche, my man. Just recycle. We've got one script. It's just been like absolutely destroyed and reassembled 1,000 times with different names and different locations, but
still equally bad, and yet people watch.
So I'm not gonna get you a greeting card lady smock. I'm gonna find you the right vest. Okay, I'm gonna find you the right vest, and I'm gonna get it to you, and you're gonna have to do an episode wearing it. That is, that's just it's the only way to make it happen, really.
If it didn't happen on the podcast, it didn't happen.
That totally agree.
Like it just is.
Well, happy birthday, buddy.
No, thanks, man.
I'm excited for you. 37's good. I'm going to be 41 in a couple of weeks.
Hey, man.
So, yeah, I got a birthday coming up here the day after St. Patrick's Day. And so, man, people have been out celebrating my birthday eve for a number of years.
Yeah.
And very thankful for that, all my Irish friends. But I'm turning 41, and I'm feeling pretty good about it, man. I'll be at 41,000 calories will be the goal. Look out, Golden Corral. I'm coming for you.
Tomahawk steak, something. Come on.
Do you want to add a steak for $4? I want all the steaks.
That's right.
Bring
How
me
many?
all.
How much for all of them?
Yeah. Bring me all the eggs and bacon that you have. Still one of the best moments in television history. Anyway, well, happy birthday, dude. I'm glad you had a good week. And I'm excited to get into this conversation with you today. Man, so, you're in this seat, Greg, where you've got the worship ministry, you've got the admin responsibilities, and both have kind of an interesting parallel and an intersection that they meet in this realm of communication.
Sure.
Communication in the church is one of these like third rails, it feels like, where just every time you get near it or you try to improve it or you try to understand it better, you just end up getting frustrated. I don't know, maybe even hurt. I don't know, but it just feels like communication in the church can be really, really tricky. And so what we're going to jump into today is this idea of how to improve, how to enhance, how to make communication better at your church. And so what we're calling this episode is kind of 3 expert tips for better church communication. And I know out the gate, if we're going to claim that these are expert tips, they've got to be good. They've got to be, they've got to be really good. And I would argue they are. And the reason we say they're expert tips is because they're tried and true. They've been proven time and time again in multiple contexts to be the secret weapon, the silver bullet to ensuring that the communication that you're having to the people in your church is just really dynamic, it's effective, and you're getting the result that you want. So we're going to kind of walk through these expert tips, because we know that, man, communication to your church can be super overwhelming. It can be super frustrating at times, right? Like we've all had those moments where it seems like no matter what you say or how many times you say it, nothing's getting through. You know what I'm talking about? Where like even on a Sunday morning, like I'm sure you've been at a spot, bro, where you guys have made an announcement about an event, that a huge event in the life of your church. And you'll have someone literally come up to you at the end of the service and go, "Hey, are we doing that thing this year?" You know what I'm saying? Like just completely clueless. Like how is that even possible? Were you not? Did you fall asleep? Did you have a stroke? Like what happened that you did not hear? And so, like in your world, I'm sure a lot of the decisions around what to communicate and how to communicate, that falls in your lap. Yeah.
A lot of it does, yes. But we do try to, we haven't always done it this way, but we're really trying to build everything into like almost a decision-making tree.
Okay. I like trees.
As far as, if this is yes, then do this, 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 and this. If this is no, then don't.
Right.
That it is much more, so it feels less arbitrary and more consistent, and then it doesn't become quite as personal when we have to say no to something or announcing something or promoting something or whatever. But yeah, a lot of those conversations do at least initially land on my desk to then decide, okay, who do I pull in? How do we have this conversation? What are we going to do? And for us, it almost always comes down to how are we going to communicate this so that the right people hear it?
Yep, that's big. That's really big.
And so that is always the lens that, because everybody wants an announcement from the platform.
Yes, which there's nothing worse than on a Sunday morning. I mean, you're looking at the clock. It's T minus, like 90 seconds.
Yep.
And some lady from the quilting ministry, right? Or Jan from the puppet group, or Tom wants to come up and say, "Hey, do you know it's Bill and Susie's anniversary? You want to make it now?" Like somebody's always wanting to try to get you right before you're about to launch this thing, and they want you to make this special announcement. That's the worst. Like there's literally nothing more frustrating to me on a Sunday morning when that kind of stuff would happen, because you feel like you're killing me. Like we have a process for this. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, you got to shut that. You have to be able to shut that kind of stuff down ultimately, which is hard to do.
It is, but it's one of those things that we have to figure out what's going to work where we are.
Right.
And then begin to leverage that the best way that we know how. And so, yeah, I think this is something that all of our people are going to be able to resonate with and say, yeah, it's something that we struggle with. And any church that has it just completely figured out, even I know a couple of guys who are on church staff that all they do is communications. All they do is that kind of stuff. And they still are having these conversations regularly of, okay, is that worth the time, the energy, the effort? How many people does it affect? All those kind of questions that come into how do we communicate and what do we communicate? And so it's something that everybody's dealing with. And I think everything launches from who are you trying to get to hear you?
Right. It is. It's determining who that kind of target audience is. Right. And so that's really the first expert tip in improving communication at your church is defining your target audience. And so I want us to jump into this a little bit. And the reason why I think some of these steps are going to be really critical for us is it's like you said, Greg, guys that they're on staff at church and they are the communications director, or part of their job responsibilities is to oversee the communication strategy for the church because of its size and its scope. And I totally get all that. But for the everyday pastor, for a lot of these guys, they don't have that level of help. Right. And so they're the communications director. They're the guys designing their own graphics. They're doing their own slides. Right. They're running their Facebook page. They're trying to get emails out and newsletters and get it's insanely exhausting. And so one of the ways that we cure that is by having an effective strategy. Even talking about at your church, like we've got this kind of tree that we have these sequences that engage once we have a communication path. And so, man, these kind of expert tips are going to be helpful in the everyday pastor and for the everyday pastor and for the everyday leader to simplify their communication approach so that while you may not get everything done in your communication, goal where you think maybe we want to start doing this, communicate this, and you're going to have a tried and true method. And man, to your point, that first key, that first critical domino is to define your target audience. And so when you say that, Greg, what does that mean then? So how do we identify what that target audience is in our church?
Sure. Well, and I think it depends on where and what kind of communication you're using. So like from where I sit, Sunday morning announcements are reserved for things that have a broad base, that it applies to lots and lots of people. We're probably not going to announce that the third grade Sunday school class is going to have a picnic on the fourth Saturday of July.
Sure.
Not from the platform. We're just not. But we are going to say, you know what? Hey, we're doing a church-wide serve day in 2 weeks, and we'd love everyone to come be part of it. So that's one of the pieces, determining, okay, who is our target in this? Are we really trying to connect with the whole body and bring everyone into it? And if that's the case, then what are the ways that we communicate to them? Well, it's a no-brainer then to leverage the Sunday morning worship gathering. If it's very targeted, if it's, hey, this is specifically for our retired folks because it's a trip to Branson for Gospel Sing Week.
Right.
Then we're probably going to not do a ton of social media on it, but we're going to do a good bit of conversation in their small group or in their Bible study group, or we're going to do a mailer, or
maybe even like a handout or something.
Right. And so knowing who we're trying to connect with drives the platform that we use to communicate. How are we communicating with parents of teenagers? How are we communicating with parents of preschoolers? How are we communicating with, whoever the group might be? And so kind of instead of trying to find one magic bullet, finding the 3 or 4 resources that we're going to use, or the mediums that we're going to use. And then from there, building out to say, okay, how can we target the right people with this? Is it a print piece? Is it a mail piece? Is it an email? Is it a text message? Is it a Facebook post or a live announcement?
Sure.
All of those leveraged by who we're trying to connect with. And so a lot of that comes down to that ministry leader or the pastor who is overseeing that event or whatever it might be, saying, okay, who is it that you're trying to get here? And based on who you're trying to get here, that will determine how we communicate.
Yep. I think that's great. I think there's this sense with which we approach communicating to our churches, and we often fail to realize that breaking people up into their subgroups and helping to promote to those subgroups about the life of that group or what's happening. So like you said, the retired folks, the student ministry, the kids ministry, small group ministry, whatever. I think we think that there's something wrong with that. We just communicate everything to the church all at once. And that's really the most important thing to avoid is trying to pack way too much in. And so now you've got a 5, 6, 7 minute announcement time and no one's paying attention. They've missed everything.
Yep.
You've got, multiple points that you're trying to make about each event or each thing that's coming up. And now the person doing announcements is drowning in it. Everyone's just like, oh, okay, get the guy. I mean, come on, let's get this over. They're not paying attention. They're looking at their phones. They're staring off. And so there's nothing wrong with getting people broken up into their groups and then communicating. And so I think making that intentional effort, you'll actually find that people appreciate it far more. And this has been proven yet again, not only in the church, but also in other situations, environments, groups that families are a part of in particular. And so like parents appreciate, and this has always been my experience in the past, parents appreciate if their kids are involved in student ministry at the church, have them subscribe to the student ministry text alert. Mm-hmm. And it's an easy setup. They set up for it. And so and then have the students, if they have access to a phone, have them sign up for it. So then you send a text out, hey, we've got this Nerf night that we're doing up at the church, big lock-in event, or whatever we're doing. Parents get that. Students get that. There's a link to register in it. Like everything you need can happen right there on their phone, which they're already on. And so, man, don't be afraid to utilize email, social media, texting, website, videos. Find as many touches as you can to communicate, because here's the reality. And I think you know this, but like the reality is we are inundated with communication from multiple facets all around us. And the biggest part of that is probably social media.
Sure.
But by the time we start scrolling,
right,
we're already lost.
Yeah. The only bit of caution that I would throw into this conversation is, yes, find out what mediums work and be willing to try new things.
Yeah.
But also be okay if you say, you know what, we can't be good at the video thing right now, so we're not going to do that.
Sure.
Or say, you know what, because I fell into this trap and then finally just had to back out of several social media platforms. Because we had the Twitter account, we had the Instagram, we had multiple Facebook groups and pages, and I couldn't keep up with all of those. And I said, you know what, we're just not going to do that anymore. Here's the one place on social that we're going to send things.
And invite people to go and connect there.
And invite people to do that. So nothing leverage what you have, but don't kill yourself trying to put it on so many platforms and in so many different ways that you end up doing none of it well.
Yeah.
And so you say, well, but we're on this and we're on that and we're giving them all kinds of places. Well, are you?
Right. And it's not always for you, right? Like you said earlier, you can empower and release your leader over that ministry to use that form of communication. So you don't need the guy that's making announcements, the service host or pastor, whoever it is. He doesn't need to be the one making all the announcements about the upcoming youth bake sale.
Right.
Let the student pastor do that. Let that volunteer,
Whoa,
let that
whoa, whoa,
parent do that.
whoa. No, the youth guy can't make the announcements.
Not from stage anyway. No, he can't. No.
Trust me, I used to be the youth guy.
Dude, it was without fail. Anytime I could get a chance to get a microphone during main service, I'm always like, it's basically like 10 minutes at the Apollo. Like, I'm just trying to lay a set. I'm working new material on this crowd.
That's right.
I'm trying to, that youth guy's funny. That's all. It doesn't matter if I'm theologically sound.
That's right.
Did
he make us laugh?
Can he make us laugh? But so no, I'm talking about, but like just realizing that it's these other sub ministries that are happening in the church, they have relationships and connections with the people that they're trying to reach. Let them communicate to them. And you don't feel like you have to do all of that. So Greg, you're exactly right. Like, leverage what you have, empower people to do it, but don't feel like you've got to do everything for the sake of trying, absolutely not. So then let's talk about the second kind of expert tip to communication. So the first one is to definitely define your target audience. And the second one is to keep it concise. You have to keep it concise. And this is so hard to do when we feel like if we don't give them enough information, they're not going to know and they're not going to come, or they're going to forget. And so we feel this compulsion, right, to give more information than what's necessary. People are busy and they're often overwhelmed with information. Like, that's just a reality. And so we have to make sure that our messages, what we're trying to communicate, we have to make sure it's clear, concise, and to the point. And here's the kicker. Don't be afraid to point people to where they can go to get more information. Right? So if you're teasing out an event, you're teasing out an opportunity to serve, you're teasing an upcoming sermon series, whatever it is, you got a big church meeting coming up. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we're going to be, in our communication strategy, we know that this event is exactly 6 weeks away. Well, we know that for the first 3 weeks, we're going to tease the event, and then we're going to direct people to the website. We're going to direct people to their email. We're going to direct people to this handout we're sending home. And then the last 3 weeks, now you can start getting registered. Now you can there'll be more information on Facebook, right? Check out this video we put out about it. Or if you'd like to know more information, you can subscribe to our weekly text. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can layer how you want to get information out so that every time you mention something, it can be very concise and it can be very intentional and it can be very to the point. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And I think part of what makes that so important and so difficult all at the same time, not only is the reality of, we want to make sure that we're getting through to people. And so we feel like we've got to give them all of the details all at once. But I think also often the flip side of, do we actually have all the details, or are we still flying the plane while we're building it?
Oh, that's, oh gosh.
And so it's we'd tell you more if we actually knew what the more we could tell you, but we can't tell you anymore because we don't know yet. So just go ahead and put this on your calendar and plan to be here. And then once we actually know what we're going to do, we'll tell you more about it. And so that's the catch-22, but we feel obligated, like people want to know all the details. So we end up not being as clear and not being as concise because we're trying to fill up space that we think is necessary to fill up to justify an announcement or a communication piece about something that's happening.
Yeah. And for the love of Moses, don't admit that you don't know. As you're talking through the announcement, don't say like, hey, in 4 weeks, we've got the annual congregational meeting coming up, and it's going to be, we think it's going to be right after at the service on Sunday. And we might have food. There might be childcare. We're not really sure yet. But we'll keep you posted. Don't say stuff like that. And also, don't put people on the spot who are in charge of ministry events that you're promoting without giving them the heads up. Like, hey, we've got this cool art night coming up for the kids. And then isn't that right, Tom? When is that again? And who's going to be there? And how much is that? Like, this isn't an interview. Like, don't just decide in advance. These are the announcements. Keep it really short. And even more than like, well, if you want more information, go see Tom after service. You could just, I don't know, like point people to the website, or because everybody knows who Tom is, like
Right.
there are ways to be really concise with your information and to be intentional with it, even if you don't know everything,
Right.
even if you don't have all the details. That's okay, but don't tell people that. Like that's I've seen that done so many times in services over the years, and I think, oh, that's a disaster.
Yep.
No one's coming to that. All right. So
or they're coming to watch them fail.
Yeah. Grab the popcorn, kids. We're gonna watch a social experiment.
That's right.
Okay. What's our third expert tip for better church communication, my man?
So the third one is being consistent, man. Consistency, like lots of things, consistency is key in communication, just like it is lots of other places.
Yep.
Consistent communication builds trust, and it ensures that everybody's on the same page. And so, determine what your schedule is going to be like, how you're going to communicate, and do your best not to deviate from that. Right. And I would argue both from the calendaring side and also the medium of that communication.
Sure.
So, if you all do a newsletter, man, that newsletter, you need to have information in it, and people need to know that they can count on it, and it's going to be available the last week of the month for the next month, or, whatever, but just making sure it's consistent, or finding that consistency of, we send an update text message or email on a Wednesday or on Thursday, or, whatever it is, pick it and do your very best to stick with it, where people know what to look for, when to look for it, and how to find it, so that they can get the information that you're hoping they'll get.
Yeah, that's huge. And I would also add to that, if you're going to use a certain form of communication, make sure that you are consistently updating it or get rid of it. So here's what I mean by that. I was online kind of looking at different churches in the area, looking at websites, things like that. And I saw a church that had, they had a big website. They had, all kinds of stuff and multiple tabs, multiple things going on. And it said, click here for upcoming events. And I'm like, cool. So I clicked on it. It hadn't been updated since 2021 for upcoming events. Now, immediately I go, oh, they have no clue. Like that gives me very little confidence that this church is really committed to community, creating opportunities for people to gather. Now maybe they are, but this place that they've created to give me the information, give me the details, they don't update regularly. So I have to draw my own conclusions, right? And I see this with church when they jump on social media, or they subscribe people to text messages or to emails, or like you said, newsletters. We get into fits and starts. You know what I mean? Like we fire off with a bang here, and then we fizzle out so quick that people begin to distrust your communication habits. And so then people stop listening and they stop showing up, and then we get frustrated. Like, oh, people aren't coming. So if you're going to use a website, keep your website updated. Yep. Take all that other stuff off there. Like, don't have a media player up there where you're going to put up recent sermons and stuff and not update the sermons for the last 6 months and things like that. So be very consistent with your communication. And if you can't do it, get rid of it. If you can't find someone in your church that can run it for you, just don't have it. Being consistent with your content is really, really important. And I would argue that in this day and age, most people are going to research you and shop you and cyber stalk you, so to speak, long before they show up to your church on a Sunday morning. And so putting your best online foot forward goes a long way. I think that's really, really important. So if you can put eggs in that basket, put eggs in that basket. But if you can't, that's fine. Just stay minimalistic. But I really think that's important in our communication strategy, is to make sure we recognize that most people are going to, that's what we do, right? Like, I don't know about you, Greg, but like before I go to a restaurant, I go online. I try to see if they have a website. I try to see what the menu is. You know what I mean? I try to look around. I look at Yelp. I look at different things, try to get a vibe on the place before I go roll the dice on it. Now, 20 years ago, like, it just is what it is. We show up, we're rolling the dice on this Pizza Hut buffet. Man, I don't know. It just may not be great, but that's not the world that we're in anymore. So I'm with you. I think consistency has to be key. So those are kind of the big three. We got to define our target audiences. We've got to keep it concise, and we've got to be consistent in our communication. And man, when these three steps are taken, when these tips are implemented, something really cool happens. And I think you've seen this in your church. And I know I've experienced this in years of ministry. People become more aware, they feel more connected, and they're given a great opportunity for engagement and ownership. When people feel like they know what's going on, they're far quicker to get involved.
Yeah.
It builds this sense of trust. It's an invitation. I think that's so important, man.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think one of the additional encouragements that I would give from not only experience, but just the real of church ministry.
Yeah.
Like, own that you are going to do, at least in some seasons, those fits and starts kind of communication. Like, again, it's not the plan, it's not the desired outcome, but it's just the real. Like, I looked a couple of weeks ago and saw that I had still old stuff on our website on pages that I haven't been to in months and months.
Sure.
And so just owning that and knowing that it's real. And then when people say something to you about it, you say, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Hey, I could use some more help. Could you help me?
And that's a great way to get people involved. Yeah. I love it.
And so, but that's just real, but leverage what you can, block off a day, out of your week where you do your social media postings, block off, an hour when you do your newsletter or your email update for the week. Put those things on your calendar, make them real. And for most things, man, if you can do it a week ahead, you're going to appreciate your time, and you're going to feel better about what you put out. Just some kind of additional encouragements along the way as you think about how you're going to communicate. Man, build some more time into your calendar for your communication, and it'll pay off huge.
It will. And it'll save you a lot of heartache too down the road when you feel like everybody keeps asking me about this,
Right.
But you're right, man. You do have to be willing to own some stuff. You do got to be willing to just be real. That might just be like Greg's new thing, just keeping it real with Greg. We might just do a little segment at the end of every show, like keeping it real with Greg. And you just straight talk, man. Straight talk. Greg lights up a cigar. The lights get dim, blows out a puff of smoke and says, all right, listen up. We're about to get real.
Sorry.
We'll put in some low jazz or something.
Yeah. Some slow jams.
Some slow jams. I like it, man. Keep it real with Greg. I love it, man. I think that really is it's a good encouragement. And I think that down the road, again, we don't want to oversaturate you with content information, but down the road, we're going to do some more episodes around communication. We're going to talk about social media strategies. We're going to talk about specific communication strategies so that you can begin to build on this. But I think in terms of like ground zero, like where to start, this is a great place to start. This is a great place to go. Speaking of communication and connection, Greg, where would one go if they wanted to get connected to this community, to this family? How would one do that? Keeping it real, Greg.
Absolutely. So there are lots of ways that you can connect with us. If you haven't already, man, we would love for you to go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. You can do that on whatever platform that you hear us, whether that's Apple Podcasts, whether that's Spotify, whether you go to our website, simplifiedchurch.com /podcast. Whatever those platforms might be, man, we'd love for you to subscribe so that you get the latest episode every week into your platform right there on the app. Also, you can connect with us on social media. We've got the Simplified Church Facebook page, and so you can like and follow there. We post all kinds of different things there. You can also reach out to us at podcast@simplifiedchurch.com. And we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And if you have positive things to say, I want to hear it. If you have negative things to say, I don't care. I'm just kidding. Send those to Josh Henry.
Keeping it real with Greg. Now I'll take all the negative stuff. Bring it.
Come get some.
Come get some. You hungry? Better pack a lunch. That's so stupid. I'm so stupid. Yeah, email us. Okay, bottom line. Anyway, thanks for listening, gang. I hope that these help. I hope that this is an encouragement to you. Everyday pastors, you're our hero. We love you. We're praying for you. And man, we'll be back real soon. Talk to you next week.